You know that one of the slogans that we thought about was no more excuses. And there's a good reason for it. No more excuses like, yeah, I'm not putting this on chain because this and that. Yeah, I'm going for another side chain because of this and that. No more excuses. Start building on the mainnet.
This is the last episode in our 3-part series with LiquidEOS talking about the DAPP Network. Everything EOS is made possible by Cypherglass. Please vote for Cypherglass using your favorite wallet or block explorer.
We didn't even imagine yet what are the possibilities of endless RAM, because until now, until VRAM was introduced to the world, all the DApp developers were sure that RAM is expensive, and they envisioned their dApps in a certain way in which RAM is a scarce resource. Mm-hmm. We cannot use a lot of it. So we see a lot of gambling apps because gambling do not require any memory. Okay, not a lot, anyway.
Well, yeah. I'm not. This is an old new topic. Just as a contract dev, I do all kinds of things. Like, you do a lot of things implicitly. Like if I can get away from storing it and just kind of act like it exists even though it's not stored, then I do. And you delete things liberally. Yeah. So I get what you're saying. We've all grown to think that like RAM should not be used if at all possible.
Exactly. And we're trying to say, guys, ladies, there is no reason to keep thinking that way. Mm-hmm. And if we're talking about games as well, we have a lot of conversations with game developers saying we do not need the game logic on chain, so we don't need any RAM. Like the only thing that needs to be stored on chain is the items themselves, for example.
But what's interesting is if there's not a cost limitation, why not is the thing. So right. All of these reasons for them doing it, it's what is the reason behind that? And the reason is economic. Like, why not? If it's cheap and available, exactly. Why are you pigeonholing yourself to only put the most important stuff there if you could put everything there?
More than that, if you don't put the game logic on top of the chain, you can cheat, essentially. Like, how do you know right now if an item is rare? It's because the game creator tells you that it's rare. But if the game logic is on chain, you can make sure that it is the only sword you're going to have ever created by the game, right? Mm-hmm. So
or who gets the item in the first place?
Right. Yeah.
For example,
not even its rarity. Who gets it?
You're right.
And trust is something that's again, it's interesting not just to prevent your customer from or your player from cheating. You also now you can think in terms of not trusting your partners not to cheat, your games you're connecting with. Because once you're relying on them, they get the opportunity to cheat. If you're having a shared logic or shared economies, these kind of opportunities where there's a network of collaborating between different pieces in the ecosystem and doing it rapidly, without building the relationship itself, I think that's the next big thing in my opinion.
Now, IPFS has a kind of a reputation for being not the quickest, for not being the quickest thing out there. What kind of latency are you guys seeing with VRAM, and that is related? And how will the network deal with how slow IPFS can be at times? Or is that just something that the DSPs have to figure out?
Oh, no, definitely not. We took that into consideration. That's why we decided not to use IPFS's public aspects. We're only using IPFS. Everything that the DSP is supposed to fetch is already local. It's You can think of it as just as a storage layer that sits locally, with the added benefit of being able to access it from client side through the IPFS cloud. But that's like a bonus. It's not how it's being used in the data path. You should never rely on the IPFS cloud itself for a thing that's so rapid as a warm-up request.
Right.
And in terms of the latency itself comes from simulating the action and trying to understand what's needed to be. Basically, trying to simulate a cache hit or miss decision.
Right.
So potentially that can happen. There's no limit there's no practical limit on how much it can be optimized. There's so much potentials in cutting down and making this process more optimized. And one misconception that's always brought up is the fact that it's in quant of blocks, the latency. So technically it can happen in the same block. And once,
of course.
That makes sense, yeah. Because it's all half-second latency latency I is that kind of
exactly.
What you're saying?
That makes perfect sense, but I don't know why I just assumed that.
It's
one block
actually
comes in, and then the
one
next
of those
block.
things where Tal can solve it in a minute. You've been stewing over this for weeks.
No, it's actually very reasonable. Some people even thought that you'd probably need to wait for finality. Otherwise, how do you know if the warm-up succeeded or not? And the beauty about it is that it's not like a false warm-up for the cache is harmless, and a cache miss is also harmless. So there's no need to wait for confirmation that the warm-up actually happened. So they both can happen as fast as possible, and potentially once it's optimized enough to happen in the same block, there shouldn't be any difference in the user experience because it's already waiting for the block confirmation.
Sure.
So I just want to throw out there, if anyone watching doesn't understand what's going on with warm-ups and all that, and why we're talking about latency and simulating actions, go ahead and watch my little video on this, or read the article that LiquidApps put out. We could throw up a link to understand what's going on with that.
One of the things that you touched in your technical video was one of the things that I'm most excited about, which is the entire concept of exception as a signal for changing how the flow or the sequence of the code is actually treated by the runtime, to emulate a situation where in the code it looks like you're fetching a resource and you're getting it right back in the same line of code, and you can just use it the next line later, even though it's not really possible, right? It's if you look at code and if you examine the code and you'll ask, okay, it can't ask for something and get it in the same transaction. So what's going on here? So this kind of magic, that hides this synchronous mechanism, which can sound trivial for programmers that come up, outside our industry. This kind of mechanism, I think the potential is great for doing many other services with it, like randomness service. That's something that you need just in time in the code to get a random seed, or even resources from the web, from APIs. So imagine things like prediction markets, where you have oracles providing the end results, and you don't need a different blockchain for that. So in a way, you can EOS combined with the DAPP layer is I think it's so generic at last that it can make other very specific blockchains redundant. Things that were started based on a specific application, and you don't really need them anymore because you can build the same thing on a standard and an abstract building blocks, which are working great.
Not because they weren't good, but because that's evolution. You had blockchain before. Now you have an app in a specific blockchain that is designed to do the same as the blockchain itself, which makes sense at the end of the day.
So you guys have been doing like a really good job at explaining VRAM right out the gate. You've been like with the blog articles that you've been putting out almost every week. One of the first ones you put out, you mentioned the randomness and the
oracles were there.
The oracles, the randomness providers. Yeah, so you had a graphic actually on one of the blog articles. And whenever I first read it, I didn't see the bottom line saying that it was a conceptual outline. So I thought all this stuff was available today. But it's not, but it will, I think. I think we have a big community of developers that are going to help you guys build this. And I think your core team's working on it as well. But what other services as you guys excited that we haven't covered yet? And I guess I'll backtrack and I'll just tell you mine, and that's the free accounts. So how is the free accounts going to affect user adoption? And you just put out a blog article recently about reaching virality and how free accounts is a huge part of that. And that's true. There's this huge point of friction asking someone to pay at minimum $1, but that's even too much. We've seen like the freemium model, how it took off in like the late 2000s. People want to try things before they put any money in, and the same is going to go for account creations.
I think any price above zero is problematic at that sense, because until you know what you're paying for, you might hesitate.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm imagining a world when you download an app and you press the sign in, and it instantly creates an account on the back, and it's an EOS account. An account you can actually upgrade at any time to become a real EOS account with paying RAM for it. But until you do it, you can still use the app as if you have your own account.
So I think there's another aspect to the accounts issue. For Facebook, each user also costs money, right? You pay for resources for your users in any other app. But here the difference is that you ask your users to pay. You can't take the cost from them. So whether it's expensive or cheap, whether it's on RAM or in VRAM, you still need the ability to take the cost on yourself as a dApp developer. And I think that's even a bigger barrier than whatever it's going to cost. Even if it's going to cost a cent, a user is not going to open his wallet for an account. True. So it's very important to give dApp developers the ability to pay for their users. Even more important than having this payment cheap, because when you build your business, you know that certain things, you don't try to be profitable from day one. So even if your unit economics doesn't work, you know that in the future, probably things are going to optimize, and people are relying on the fact that it's going to get cheaper and cheaper. But the fact that they can't take the cost on themselves, I think it's a big barrier. And that's something that we definitely see the dApp layer providing many solutions in the form of whether it's virtual accounts and having this account data in VRAM. I think both these things together can allow you to actually start thinking of bringing mass audience.
So let's talk about, unless you have a quick follow-up, Zach, let's talk about Immortal for a little bit.
You got to carry. We got a limited time frame here. We got to get through this.
Okay, all right. So let's talk about. Okay, so right now, let's say bet dice on EOS, right? BetDice is, sort of decentralized. There's a contract on the back end, but something could happen that takes the domain down or like the front end down, right? It could be a rogue actor in the company. It could be the company itself. It could be some legal order. It could be some kind of other, a hacker or whatever that takes the front end down. And the idea is that, well, someone else could build another front end that interacts with the contract, right? But we all know that like if Facebook went down, and suddenly there was a like Facebook2.com that you had to start going to and you had to switch over to, it'd be a serious hit to the business, despite even if the back end was still up, right?
Sure.
And so that would be a big hit to, I'm just taking BetDice as an example here, but any dApp. But with this, with the prospect of hosting things in a decentralized way from start to finish, from back to front, are we creating a breed of dApps that can't be shut down, that can't be hurt in that way, where if there's a government or a hacker or a rogue actor or some the company just decides to exit scam, are we creating dApps that can live on forever, that are immortal, that can't be taken down by a hacker or the company or a government or a rogue actor?
So that's a great point, and I think that there is another aspect to it, having the front end in a centralized place where it not only can be taken down, but a hacker can abuse it. A hacker can replace your front end, and it won't help you if your contract and your logic is safe and decentralized and trustless. If the entry point to your application is something that someone can hijack and point you to something that doesn't even talk to the blockchain. So I think it's definitely a huge disruption in the way we can envision web services. I'm really excited about it. I think that the first, I can't wait to have like the first immortal game, the first game that that's going to live forever, and it doesn't matter if the company no longer exists or if nobody wants to pay for the cost.
Does it live on forever as long as the dApp tokens remain staked? Or if they're unstaked, wouldn't everything be lost from the developer?
Right. Okay. The way I see it is that eventually, because of Moore's law, the cost for providing the service is going to go down. So I'm assuming that if you stake enough, if you lock enough tokens, there is a model where you can potentially, just by breaking the key and keeping the stake tokens, of course, there will need to be another layer of automatically choosing the DSPs and things that the community is already talking about. But eventually you can get to a point where the staking is enough. It's not like a cellular provider where you need like to reserve a huge amount of money in the bank to guarantee the service. Potentially, there could be a service where if you lock enough tokens, it could live forever, as long as the dApp layer and the blockchain lives.
Now, if there aren't enough tokens locked, let's say conditions change, the costs change, whatever, and the developer has disappeared, can the community step in and stake to it?
Of course, that's going to be the beauty of it. So the community, I think that's how things can become truly decentralized. If the community starts assuming the costs and not the dApp developers, because someone has to pay for the usage, right? Someone has to pay for the RAM, even if whether it's $20,000 per gigabyte or whether it's cent per gigabyte, like it is in Amazon. It doesn't matter if. Sorry, I lost.
For comparison, on the mainnet, we could stake CPU to other accounts. So we could assume that like this eternal game, if the dApp service providers, maybe they increase the bar of how many tokens are required to be staked for a certain amount of storage, the community that's playing this game, they could basically stake their tokens, their dApp tokens towards these DSPs, and then they might just forget about them and say, this game, I want it to live forever. I'm leaving. I don't even want these tokens anymore. They're just going to support this game forever. Is that?
Yeah. And we've seen like it's not totally new in the sense that we've seen fans of classic games take games and try to rebuild them and try to revive them as a community as a whole. One of the Star Wars game just was rebuilt completely by the fans because the original company just shut down the game, and there was such a demand that the community just rebuilt the entire thing. Mm-hmm. So hopefully that won't have to be such an effort anymore.
All right, I have a question that I've been itching to ask this whole time. Beni, you teased it in the LiquidApps channel, LiquidCMS. What are you guys allowed to talk about with that, and how does that integrate with the dApp layer here?
Yeah, guys, don't Google it. You'll find nothing.
I'm going to try to skip this one, but I'm going to tell you something else.
I'll take it. I'll take whatever you can give me.
In the Zeus code, Tal hinted it actually this morning, but in the code of Zeus, there are quite a few intriguing gifts that people may look and see over there. Some of them, as Tal will say, may be related to the CMS. Right, Tal?
Plain sight.
Yeah,
I love it. The EOS community seems to be on a little kick for treasure hunts anyway, so I like this. I like that answer.
I would put it a bit differently. We're not going to release things by surprise. And we're not going to hide things. The process that we're trying to do is a process that's highly engaged with the developers community and really trying to focus on the needs. And that's why whenever we progress and we have something new, whether it's a blueprint or the data structures or beginning of a service, we don't wait. We release it and we want to hear the feedback.
So you're developing every single iteration of a new feature is public and open to community contributors, and you actually encourage community contributors. Is that kind of that's how I interpreted that?
That's true.
Right. That's exactly right. And the reason we're doing it is because we want our solutions to fit the needs with as few iterations as possible.
You get rapid feedback too whenever people are supporting the open source code there.
We don't claim we know everything or everything should look like. And we're not naive, and we think it's magic is a gradual process behind the scene. No one, there's no product owner that knows exactly how things should be in the first iteration. Whenever you see a very, very good product, it's usually giving this kind of perception. But that exactly means that the product work and the process was good, not because there was a product, a Steve Jobs kind of a product genius that just knows what to do. It's always a gradual and tedious process, and the end result may look like magic. So it's kind of misleading.
Collective genius is what it is.
Yeah,
Right.
nice, nice. Decentralized genius. I can add to that. In the last week or so, I had a lot of calls with various developers in different areas, and they were talking about utilizing different parts of the DAPP network, asking if some things are possible. And I'll try to throw a few ideas that I know that are okay to discuss, not breaking any NDAs.
We could talk forward thinking. So if I asked you a question of what do you envision being possible in the DAPP network 5 years from today, like where do you see this going? If the community wants to develop it with some of the support of your core team, but mostly it's a collaborative effort though. So it's everybody. What do we see in 5 years? Maybe less. Hopefully less.
5 years is a long time in crypto space. 5 years is forever.
Can we do 1 year, 2 years?
Let's try to envision. Let's try to envision like the next few months or up to a year, as you said. Branches of oracles popping out in many different fields, allowing for data coming off of the actual World Wide Web into the blockchain and onto different pricing mechanisms. Randomness is achieved, a way to hide your data even though it's on blockchain for a certain period of time, for various games or other features that we can't even imagine yet. KYC process on-chain becoming from a DSP, a payment solution from a DSP. History nodes is no longer an issue. Memory is being solved. CPU is being solved.
Guardian service.
Guardian service.
What's Guardian service? I'm maybe a little behind here.
For example, a service that can protect your key, that can have a part of your multi-sig key, where if you need to recover your key, you can identify with him, and you basically use this service just as any other service in the DAPP network, but for a more applicative thing.
The most interesting for me about that network is the fact that in a free market ecosystem, you can build any service you would like as a DSP and as a developer as well, on the other hand, to be able to request a specific service. And with a plug-and-play effort, after obviously writing the code that allows it, you can connect it to the network itself, and this will encourage more developers, and vice versa. It's like it's an endless effort, but it's an endless scale as well.
If I imagine the ideal future, I don't know if we'll get there, but that would be the ideal future from my perspective. Is that we reach a point where it's not only seamless and interoperable in terms of different chains and resources, but even code compatible with classic software, with the actual ability to take source code that wasn't meant to run on the chain, and without modifying it, running on the chain, like taking a classic web application and with minimum work making it work on the chain.
I think Pete has something to say about this. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I messed that up by interrupting you, but Pete's eyes lit up, my eyes lit up. That's exactly what we're doing.
Yeah, I think that's the vision, getting to a place where software development is compatible off-chain and on-chain is seamless and compatible, and there's no real effort and barrier, like absolutely no effort and barrier between switching between one to the other. I think the technology and the ecosystem can get there. I hope, but I definitely think it should go there in this direction.
And the collaborative effort will allow it to go there.
Pete, you got anything to say? Pete,
I don't even know what to say to that. No, I'm still reeling. I mean, that's, so many questions, but we don't have time for them.
That's number 3. That's part 3.
Yeah, right.
I can tell you
this is a 3-parter.
How we're going to do it as a community.
All right.
No.
Gradually.
Something.
Very gradually. Yeah.
All right, so we've actually, I don't know what episode this will be whenever we get to this end here. We've been on this call for, I think, almost 3 hours. You guys broke the scatter record. This is going to be this is probably the last episode of, I don't know if it's a 3 or a 4-part series, but I really, really appreciate everyone's time here. If anyone has anything else they want to talk about, now is the time to get it in. If you want to ask the community to maybe build something that you guys aren't building that you want them to, or you just want to plug something, now is that time.
Definitely. We're looking to expand the team now, and we want to build the team, continue having the team with very, very high caliber. And the best people we can get, basically. So we're looking to expand. If you think you're up to the challenge, then feel free to send us your details.
And I would add that if you're a dApp developer, do not hesitate to contact us through the group Telegram or in private messages. We'll be happy to assist if need be, and let's see the system scale together.